class for marketing management. So first off here, we did 7 rounds. On round 1, we talked about market research. This actually was probably the most valuable round for me. I never really put much value on market research. I always thought it was a little bit silly, kind of a waste of time. But in this simulation, it had us pick out a few questions that we wanted to ask a group of people. And it was incredibly enlightening to me to learn about the importance of asking the right questions. It is so important to select what kind of research is most suitable for you and your project and your product. You want to make sure that you're asking the right questions and that you're asking the right people, so that you can better evaluate your price, your target market, and the type of, in this case, bag that you want to sell. Round 2 was actually launching the product. What I learned in this one is that your first official launch, especially if it's your first product ever, might not necessarily go well. Pricing your product is tricky, and and kind of figuring out how to distribute it and all that kind of stuff is hard. Another valuable lesson I learned in this round is the positioning statement and the importance of that. Your positioning statement can actually help attract the right kind of people to your product, and give them an idea of what you're selling and if it's something that they would be interested in buying. Round 3, we created a promotions plan. This round was interesting for me. It was a little bit tricky to figure out how to allocate my money for advertising. There's a lot of different platforms and a lot of different ways that you can promote your product, and it was hard to kind of choose from all of them. Some of the things that I learned to maybe ask myself was, what platforms are most valuable? What do I see most often day to day? What promotions can you run that will attract people to your product? Is it important to have it is important to have a solid amount of money to invest in advertising. I realized with how much money that we were given in this simulation, I at first thought it was a lot, but it turned out to be, enough. And if not, more might have even been a little bit more valuable. Finding the best way to advertise your product can be really tricky. What platforms are best to spend money on? In my case, I think I figured out that Instagram and Facebook were my most successful platforms. And beyond that, I struggled to figure out which platforms were best to spend my money on. Things like TV, billboards, and surprisingly TikTok were actually not successful in advertising the product, which I was particularly surprised about TikTok. And TV and billboards used to be the way that products are advertised, and that's just not the case anymore. Round 4 is we set up distributors. So in this case, we looked into different shops and different stores that we could sell our bag at, and it was interesting because each store gave you, a different, different categories of the kind of people that shop there, and we had to find distributors that were right for our product, and that would bring in the most revenue. How much, another question you had to ask yourself was, how much would you make off of each sale of the bag? Each distributor gave you a different amount that you would bring in. What I learned is that even though they might give you the most money per sale of the bag, that might not be the best department to sell them at. Another store might be better and bring in more revenue. And you also, like I was saying before, you want to take into account what their target market is at that store, so that you can best decide if the bag would be successful there. Round 5 would be, to optimize distribution. So similar to what we just discussed, what distributors are going to best suit your product. What will you get out of the sale? Will this help more people purchase your bag, at a certain store? What kind of people go there, and will that help more people come? And then does this create more traction for and popularity for your product? Those were actually, things I had to learn over time as I picked different distributors to kind of see what worked. I learned, like I said, just because they might give you the most money per sale doesn't mean that they're necessarily the best fit for your bag. This one was super important, is optimizing pricing. A question that I find myself asking a lot through each round is, who is my target market? In this case, do they have disposable income? Do they have money to spend? Maybe do they have a double income? Are both people of the household working? How much can you price your bag without pushing the limits? I learned that the hard way. I priced my bag really, really, really low. And I actually ended up by the end doubling the price because people were willing to spend money on it. And my target market, $75 was really cheap, and $149 was a good price that attracted people and that people were willing to spend. What price is affordable and that catches their eye? I learned that, my $149 price is just below the $150, so it still feels a little bit less expensive, but it was doable. And then, just like I just said, you want that customer to feel like they're getting a good deal. So pricing the bag in a good way, $144.99 or $149 or, $152 or anything like that, kind of lower prices based on, a concrete number like $150, $155 are good ways to base your pricing. And finally, optimizing promotions. In this situation, you have a unique opportunity to run promotions. You can, run promotions that get you free shipping, that give you, a discounted item on the price of the sale. These things are really a good way to bring in revenue, and if you run these promotions right, they can really be helpful. In my case, I struggled with this a little bit. I couldn't figure out what was best to run. Also charities. I realized that I needed to be looking at charities that might speak to my target audience, not just a charity that I like, but what charities might the people that are going to most likely buy my bag want to donate to. And by doing all these things, you can, help successfully sell your product even more. One of my biggest takeaways from this class were the 4 P's of marketing, and the importance of all of them. You've got the product, price, place, and promotion. They're all incredibly important. I learned that value comes with each of these P's. I feel like I was successful in my product and my price, but I found that place and promotion were hard for me, and those were a little bit trickier for me to get down, but that they were just as important as my product and as my price. What I found the most challenging was actually, like I just said, the promotions and the advertising. It was really, really hard to figure out the best platforms and the best promotions to run for my clientele. I never really felt like I got it down, but I also learned how important those things were. I'd say out of all the things that I learned in this class, my biggest takeaway is the value of research. I really, really didn't put any value on it. But as I went back and I reviewed each round, and I reviewed the first round where we asked the questions, I remembered that this round was initially the reason that I picked the kind of bag that I picked, that I, learned my pricing, that I picked my department stores that I was going to sell them at. Everything came back to the market research, and this was incredibly valuable information for me to learn. It's clearly important to ask the right questions to the right people. You really want to get the best data that you can so that you can accurately spend your money and not waste it. Doing these things can, set you up for success. And I learned that is just so valuable. And, like I said earlier, my initial beliefs versus now is that, initially I believed that the most important thing was, to promote your product. That's where you need to spend all your time, is advertising your product. Now, I would say that I've learned that the 4 P's are all equally important in marketing. That there is value in price and promotion and place and your product. It's just as important to pick the right product as it is to price it correctly, as it is to promote it in the best way, as it is to, advertise it. All of those things, are equally important to successfully marketing your product. Thank you.